First off, we got some important clarifications in this episode regarding the dubious state of the past that had been cast into a suspicious light in episode 2. As Sally is talking to John, we understand that her affair with Glenn was a fling that ended when she came to know that he was married. Sally met John soon after, and she came to know that she was pregnant. Sally says that she did not think the child was Glenn's and honestly believed it to be John's. But when, years later, Gemma fell sick, and neither of her parents' samples matched her for surgery, Sally started connecting the dots that Glenn might be the father and wrote to him about it. When she didn't get a response, she met him, and that was the day she saw Alice. The reason Sally seems to be so attached to the girl is that she reminds her of Gemma, and the reason Agnes trusted Sally is that she understands this after she heard Sally talking to Glenn that day and subsequently sees how kind she is to Alice. Since Glenn did not help Gemma, the little girl passed away, and it seems like that is when sense was knocked into his head. He made that wood carving of Gemma and sent it to Sally, which she had trouble accepting for a while. But it was a beautiful likeness of her daughter, and as we have seen before, Glenn has a gift with wood carvings that makes them seem like real people coming to life. Basically, Glenn was an idiot, and Sally never betrayed her husband. Right now, she is just a hurting mother who needs to fill the Gemma-shaped hole in her life. As for John, he decides to separate from her, unable to stomach the lie. Back on the farm, Alice is angry with her grandmother and tries to run away, as most kids do during their tantrums, but is simply found in a different room. June decides to tell Alice some of the truth until the girl gets better. Contrary to what we thought, Agnes did not come to Thornfield after escaping from an abusive marriage. She went there when her parents passed away in a car accident, and she grew up on the farm. After she and Clem fell in love and got married, they left the place. June promises to give Alice more answers once she starts speaking. While all this is fine, there is one revelation that we can only describe as yucky. Candy and Clem grew up as siblings, but maybe they were more deeply involved than that. The cuts on their hands were made by Clem, saying that this was how they were connected. We are curious whether Clem and Candy were together even when he was with Agnes. He certainly seemed to have a way with words, which he gladly used to his benefit. In the meantime, Alice explores the place, and it is almost as if she can sense her mother's presence around the place. June shows her how they harvest the honey from the bees, and though she calls it medicine, Alice is going to grow up and use it for skin care. That day, another woman comes to the farm with her baby, seeking refuge. Alice sees the marks on her neck that tell her what must have happened to her. But when Alice is talking to Twig, and she comes to know that her brother has likely passed away and June has planted a tree in his memory, Alice breaks down. She had been attached to her baby brother in her mother's womb, and the news of his passing hit her hard. Elsewhere, Sally is scrambling to be a part of Alice's life in some way. She files for visiting rights if she can't get custody, and June chooses to ignore it. She doesn't want Sally to be involved with Alice in any shape or form, and the reason for it is not some pettiness but a legitimate fear for the safety of the place. Sally comes to her town to meet her, and when she is at the diner, Augie's mother, who was once a flower, tells her that the place is closed. Yet, Sally decides to go to the field, and June lets her in and tells her the truth about Thornfield. She also tells her how her meddling with the legal process puts all the women in danger. While Sally realizes the situation, she wonders whether this is a good environment for a child to grow up in, and it also remains that she herself wants access to Alice in some shape or form, but June tells her to get over it. On her way back, Sally breaks down on the phone with John, and he asks her to come back to start their relationship afresh. Alice had grown quite attached to Dina and her baby. It could be because the child reminded her of what her brother could have been, or maybe because she saw the woman get the care and protection that were denied to her own mother. This is why, when she finds that the woman has left and gone back to the man, she breaks down and lets out a loud scream. The frustration of the situation opens up her voice. Augie is the first one to hear it when he brings her a drink that he says adults love but which Alice ends up hating. Back at home, June gets the news that Agnes' son has survived and can come back home. June doesn't take the news well, and when she sees the vision of a young Glenn in front of her eyes, we know that she fears the men of the Hart family. While she had told Alice and the others a fairy tale of how she had fallen in love with a Robin Hood-like robber, there must have been someone else who she thinks is responsible for Glenn turning out the way he did. At the end of episode 3, Alice starts asking June the questions that she has always wanted to know about. June lets her know that Clem left the farm when June told him that only women could inherit the place. That is because the farm was a refuge, but Clem did not like that idea, so he left with Agnes. He only contacted his mother once again when Alice was born, and he sent a carving of her as a baby to June. June did not know that Clem had turned into an abusive man, and she had no way of contacting Agnes or rescuing her. While this explanation is enough for Alice for now, there is more to the story that June promises Twig to tell Alice later. As the episode closes, we see June making a call to John Morgan, likely to discuss Agnes' child. In episode 4, our primary protagonist is nowhere to be found on Thornfield. She has gone without saying anything and has left only a flower for her grandmother. The flower signifies betrayal, and June is worried about what Alice might have found out. She has just returned from critical surgery, and her health is in a delicate condition. She takes a breath of relief when Alice calls and tells her why she left. Alice and Augie had grown to be a couple, and they had certain plans for their future, some of which involved getting married and then traveling the world. But when Augie and his mother were deported from the country, those dreams were shattered. Let us note that episode 4 starts 14 years after the events of episode 3. This means that Alice is currently 23 years old. Augie left 6 years ago, so Alice must have been 17 years old when she planned on marrying him. The reason Alice has left Thornfield right now is because she discovered that it was her grandmother who made the call to the concerned authorities that had Augie deported. Not only that, she blocked his email and wrote him a fake message on Alice's behalf that she was breaking up with him. Additionally, June had withheld all the letters that Augie had written to Alice for the past few years. After all this time, Alice finally got one of his letters, and this must have come to her because June was in the hospital and could not intercept it. In the letter, Augie discusses their breakup and the fact that he is getting married now. A heartbroken Alice finds all the evidence of her grandmother's deceit and is furious at the control she has exercised over her life. There are better ways to tell a 17-year-old not to get married than to get her boyfriend deported and pull the Notebook on her. Alice takes her truck and drives to Agnes Bluff. The reason she chose that place was because it had her mother's name. Alice rescues a stray dog on the way, and when she reaches Agnes, she takes him to the local vet, who goes by Moss. There is a bit of rudeness in their initial interaction when Alice rejects his help to drive her, but when they meet again, she apologizes, and the two get along well. Alice likes Moss and considers being with him, though she is initially hesitant since he is probably going to be the first person for her after 6 years since Augie left. But she gets over her apprehension, and they spend the night. The two of them start hanging out with each other, and Moss seems like a generally sweet guy who Alice is having a good time with. But she also meets someone else, Dylan, who is a ranger at the national park close by. She runs into him when she goes sightseeing, and the next time she sees him is at a party. He definitely likes her already, and Alice can feel the pull, but she is making up her mind about it. One of the other rangers invites her and Moss to go on a sunset tour with them to the park, and Alice is excited about it. Moss is unable to make it at the last minute, and Alice goes alone. While episode 4 doesn't show Alice and Dylan interacting with each other, they are aware of their presence. When Alice reaches the top of the crater on the tour, we believe she feels a sense of belonging to the place, and it seems to remind her of her mother. So far, she may have thought of Agnes Bluff as a stop along the way or a place to hide from her grandmother. But after this tour, we suppose she will look to make a more permanent home in the town. As we suspected at the end of episode 4, June has indeed asked John and Sally Morgan to take care of Alice's brother, Charlie. She has kept up with his health updates through the years, and we suspect that she helped the Morgans financially as well. 14 years later, Charlie has been declared perfectly healthy by the doctor, meaning that he can lead a normal life from here on. This is a huge milestone, and when June calls the Morgans to talk about Alice's whereabouts, Charlie is excited to tell her this. We get the sense that he knows about her but has never spoken to her before. Looking at his excitement, he must be thinking about her in some positive capacity instead of just as the woman who abandoned him. But June does not want to speak to Charlie at all. When she curtly asks for John, Charlie is heartbroken at her lack of interest. Later, when June collapses and is in the hospital, Twig takes her phone when Sally calls her and gives them the update about Charlie, in addition to telling her off for behaving so heartlessly. This is the first time Twig has heard of Charlie being alive, meaning that June has kept this secret to herself all this time. Twig rushes back home, and upon looking through some things, she finds that Charlie had written countless letters to Alice throughout his growing years. In fact, he and the Morgans kept sending pictures of Charlie in an effort to maintain a relationship with Alice and June. But all of that had been stored away in a cardboard box and kept out of sight. Twig is furious, and she starts chopping off the tree that she had planted for Charlie since he is alive and does not need a signifier of his death. June tries to explain herself, saying that she did not want Alice to be around the men of the Hart family, not knowing whether Charlie would also turn out like Glenn or not. But Twig is not ready to accept this excuse. Her own children were taken away from her due to the racist systems of the state, and she had only been able to find peace in the fact that they were together. Twig believes that June had no right to separate Alice from her family. Right here is another proof of June's trauma. Her husband was definitely not some heroic robber, and the fact that she thinks violence is inherent to the men of the family means that her experience with Clen's father was similar to Agnes' experience with Clen. At the end, June makes a flower arrangement for Twig, saying that she is sorry and needs her in her life. But Twig is not having it and destroys the arrangement, signifying that she doesn't want to be with June anymore. We don't think June feels guilty for separating Alice and Charlie. She only feels bad that Twig is hurt. Even if she did feel bad, her crime was too big to be forgiven by flowers. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and I hope you enjoyed episodes of The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart.